The state of our Commonwealth is strong. That was the message delivered by Governor Deval Patrick at his annual State of the Commonwealth address just 2 weeks ago. But that doesn't mean his final months in office will be a cakewalk. No, from the problems plaguing the Department of Children and Families to the threat of more severe weather, the governor's plate is always full. Welcome to you, Governor.
Nice to see you. You know, with that introduction, I feel like I better get out of here and get back to work.
No, but all right. So, first question: you're going to be in the bunker tomorrow, the MEMA bunker?
Well, it depends. We try to make decisions based on the most up-to-date forecasts, and I have another call this afternoon and probably another one early in the morning. But you've been following the storm. It sounds like it's going to come just in time for the morning commute and get a little better in the middle of the day and get bad again in time for the evening.
Well, we're
commute.
hoping it gives you another opportunity to haul out your MEMA,
my vest.
MEMA vest. And this is my favorite picture, though, because it's complete with your your serious scowl look.
Yeah, you know what? It's not actually a scowl. That's just what I look like when I'm listening closely.
All right. Another weather-related thing, because we're all thinking about it, because watching the Winter Olympics, I have been anyway. I think they've been great, but there's actually been serious talk about the possibility of bringing it to Boston.
Why not?
And yeah, how do you feel about that?
Why not? I think I think it's a great thing when this city and its civic leaders think big. I think it's important for this state. We are a world-class destination. We ought to act like it. I don't know all the ins and outs or how difficult it will be. I think it will be difficult and challenging. It is for every city. But why not compete?
We have a couple suggestions already. I mean, here's the Frog Pond. We figured why not have a little Olympic skating there. And then we actually were thinking,
okay, come on,
Boston would be better off doing the Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
And so here's an opportunity right here in the
You like
Charles
that?
River.
Okay.
No, seriously, the Summer Olympics. I think this area would be better. I mean, they're suited to the Winter Olympics.
Really?
Yeah. You got the mountains. You got some of the infrastructure.
I suppose. I think the conversation has been about the Summer Olympics.
I know it has.
It's interesting because I was a part of a conversation with some civic leaders maybe 25 years ago about this, and we had the then head of the U.S. Olympic Committee come to Boston and talk to some of us about it. I don't know whether folks will be able to put together a compelling proposal, but I think there are serious folks thinking seriously about it, and that's a great thing.
Actually, I meant to say I think we'd be better suited for the Summer Olympics. Anyway, moving on to more serious things.
Yeah.
Your head of the healthcare connector, Sarah Island, was hammered on Beacon Hill today.
Yeah.
I mean, being blamed for all kinds of issues with the website and people being able to maneuver it to get actually to the kinds of health policies they want to buy. Yeah. Is that a fair criticism?
Well, it's not a fair criticism of Sarah, of course, because Sarah Island was brought in to help us fix it and lead the project team that will do so. It's a fair criticism of CGI, which is the vendor, the outside vendor we paid to give us a functioning website, and it's not a functioning website. And we learned just how dysfunctional it was in late last year at the point when it was supposed to go live, and after a lot of representations had been made that it would be ready. But I think the key thing to remember is this: that the main objective is making sure that people have insurance, and if they don't have it, can get it. We lead the nation in healthcare coverage, and we've gotten better. We've added more people since the ACA went into effect. Nobody has lost their insurance. There have been some hiccups in moving people from their current policies to compliant policies if they're subsidized, but we're not going to let anybody slip through the cracks, and that's the main event.
So is the dead gun going to slide? Because we're already well into the new year.
We are well into the new year.
Ours was working at the end of last year when the federal one wasn't.
Right.
That had been working.
Right.
And now it's...
Now the federal one is working. Working better. And you know what? It's the same vendor. Who was such a problem at the federal level when we used here in Massachusetts. They're on a very short leash right now because there are elements, rather than being dismissed at this point, which is a fair question, one I have asked, because there are elements of what they have built that can be made to work and need to be made to work to make sure that we hit these next deadlines. All
right. Just a couple of weeks ago, Attorney General Eric Holder announced that the federal government would seek the death penalty for Jahar Tsarnaev. At that time, you released a statement and you said, well, one way or another, based on the evidence, Tsarnaev will die in prison. But what's your position on it? Do you have a position?
Well, look, I mean, I don't support the death penalty as a policy
But is it okay in this case?
Well, I think there are rules about when it's appropriate, and those rules were followed. And by the way, when I was at DOJ, those in the Department of Justice, those rules were put in place, and I had to respect them and enforce them. So I think it's a great thing. We have a system where someone who is opposed to the death penalty as a philosophical matter, by the way, as our Attorney General is, still is compelled to follow the rules and make the findings and make the recommendations on that basis.
Most of the citizens of Boston, there was a recent poll that showed that. I'm not sure statewide at this point, but I mean, there's no guarantee that he will be given the death penalty.
Well, you know, as I say, one way or another, he's going to die in prison because the only option, based on the facts, and I don't want to get ahead of the verdict, but based on what I understand the facts to be, the only alternative is life without the possibility of parole. So, and when you consider what a terrible crime this was, how vicious and premeditated it was, as I said in my statement, he should die in prison.
We don't have it here, and of course, Washington State just dialed back on it too. I want to ask you about another case. It's sort of it's constantly in the news. But yesterday, Secretary of Public Safety Andrea Cabral dealt with this. One of the state legislators was asking her why the state was stonewalling on giving Michelle Kosulik, the guy accused of killing his wife, convicted of killing his wife like 20 years ago.
Oh, is this the sex change?
Yeah. And she said, you know what? This has national implications for what is determined to be cruel and unusual punishment. The cruel and unusual punishment being that he can't have this sex change operation. And so that's why the state is stonewalling it. And the legislators say, it's costing us money, let's just get it done with. Do you agree with that?
I don't think, first of all, I don't think it's a fair characterization to say there's any stonewalling going on. The question has not been whether there should be some treatment for the sexual identity disorder. I'm not using exactly the right term, but for the issues that the inmate is experiencing. The question is whether it has to be the most expensive response, and we've lost that point in the district court and before a panel of the Court of Appeals, and we've asked now for the entire court to review it. I think we'll hear from them soon whether they will or will not review it. If they do, we'll get their decision, and that's probably the end of it at that point.
So what we were talking about at the beginning of the show when we said the issues with the Department of Children and Family Services have been plaguing your administration. A couple of really high-profile cases have come to light in the last couple of months. The missing 5-year-old Jeremiah Oliver.
Terrible.
Where a couple of social workers were fired for not properly doing their jobs. He was left in the home. But since then, a lot of children, I mean, the uptick is enormous. Like 80% more children in the last 2 months have been taken out of the homes. We actually heard from a couple people we've been doing a lot with this who said, you know, this whole thing with foster care doesn't work. And we really ought to be looking at group homes. Has the state looked at that at all?
There are group homes for certain children. That's true. And it's interesting what you say about the uptick in children being removed from the home. I'm told over the last 20 or 30 years, when there has been public focus on just how hard a job the folks have at DCF, that there's this pendulum that swings back and forth. You know, there are there are efforts to try to keep families unified, provided they have the right services and the right kind of oversight, if you will. And then there are terrible incidents that happen, and there's an uptick of the kind you describe. And then folks say, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing so much in the way of foster care. We should do more in terms of family unification, and the pendulum swings back and forth. I think the thing here is, number one, it is absolutely clear that, and it has been for some while, that they need more staffing at DCF. And we've been working on this for a long time.
Well, you've just given them an uptick in the budget, too.
We did, and the legislature is supporting us, but we have asked in the past. So it's not like this is a new issue. We've been working with the staff around what the right ratios are for some while as well, at a time, as you know, when the bottom was falling out of the budget. The other thing is, until now, they haven't had access to real-time information. And when you consider that social workers and caseworkers are making decisions, really critical decisions, you want to have the most up-to-date information, and the IT systems have not allowed that. We're going to fix that as well.
So the other high-profile case involves the 14-year-old who shot and killed his 9-year-old brother last Friday.
In Mattapan.
Yeah. So
in which DCF was very involved.
Apparently, DCF tried to get that child removed. The mother claims it was the other way around, but there are court records saying that DCF did try.
Right.
I think my question is, are there some cases that are just so complicated and, you know, hidden and secretive in a way that there's no way government can solve it?
Well, look, I think the reality is that the children involved with DCF are some of the most challenging children in the most challenging families, in the most challenging circumstances that we have in the Commonwealth. And they are, it is remarkable, frankly, that the team at DCF over the years and up to now achieves as many daily miracles as they do. They're very tough cases, and sometimes the cases are going to go in the wrong way. And in the case of that terrible tragedy last week in Mattapan, all the indications are that DCF did exactly what they were supposed to do, including look in on the family just, I think it was 8 days before the shooting. In
response to this, Mayor Marty Walsh has said that he wants to reestablish the gun buyback program, but you know. You see the little old ladies, you know, bringing the gun from their father in the war. I mean, there's actually proven evidence that isn't going to be a solution. Is there something else? I mean,
I don't think
the kid who had 14-year-old who had the gun is not going to turn it in at a gun.
Well, there's still a question about where that gun came from. We're still trying to sort that out. But
he's not turning it in.
But look, I think first of all that. The presence of guns on the streets of Boston and streets of other urban communities in Massachusetts is a serious problem, and we've proposed legislation. I think the mayor's buyback program is a good idea and a good faith one, but he doesn't believe, and I don't believe, and most people don't believe that there is one solution here. In the case of a DCF-involved family, for reasons you said, there are all kinds of complexities. In the case of gun and gang violence, generally there are ways in which we're going to have to start giving young people hopeful and positive alternatives to the alternatives they have chosen. And just removing guns, that's a part of it, but that's not all of it.
As you well know, a lot of this is driven by drugs. I mean, 80% of the people in some of the county jails, for instance, are there for drug purposes. I've been doing a lot of research on heroin for a piece we're doing next week. And this drug Narcan is actually pretty remarkable. I mean, one police chief...
The overdose drug, you mean?
Yeah, police chief in Lynn told me it brings you back from the dead. You know, this
Imagine
Narcan.
That.
Like you're gone, and then you get this... But only 2 police departments in the whole state use it as a matter of policy, although Boston announced yesterday that they're going to start doing it. Should it be a statewide policy? Should all of them?
Maybe. I think, you know, the access to it, I think we ought to be thinking about ought not be limited to police, but also to other first responders who are called in and 911 calls when somebody is found at risk of overdose. But, you know, we're not the only state, and we're not alone. God bless him. Governor Shumlin up in Vermont spent his whole State of the State talking about the rise in heroin use, and it's a terrible thing, and it's cheaper and purer, so therefore much more broadly available and more dangerous. There are, I would say, just on the criminal justice side, and I know we have to wrap up. You always do that when it's time
I want to get to another one.
I think it has been shown to be a failed criminal justice strategy to warehouse people for possession. That we've got to be thinking about how to get them into treatment rather than into jail.
All right, this is a question I know you're sensitive about because I've seen you asked it before. John Keller was asking you a couple months ago about Sal DiMasi, and would you, because he's been sick. And he's very sick. He's got tongue cancer and lung cancer now. And we had Debbie DiMasi on the other night, and I asked her if she had spoken to you or if you would, or did she feel like your response to John Keller was cold? And here's what she said. You and Sal knew the governor pretty well. Could the governor do something, or is it only up to the federal government and the Federal Bureau of Prisons?
I would imagine if he wanted to, he could probably intervene and try and help. I don't think that's something that he would consider doing.
Why not? This is
well, I'm not sure
unusual.
it's correct that if I wanted to, I could do something. I mean, there are jurisdictional issues, and people always think all it takes is the covenant is a call from somebody with the title, and things turn around. It actually doesn't. It doesn't work that way. I feel, you know, we wouldn't want anybody to suffer and to be away from family while they are suffering. I don't frankly know what the alternatives are.
Why can't they move them to Devon's?
Well, but I mean, the
so
question,
you have compassion.
What's that?
You do have compassion.
Of course. I mean, look. I had a relationship with the speaker. It wasn't always easy, but it was a respectful one. I think, particularly at the end, we got a lot of stuff done together. I'm crazy about his wife. I think she's magnificent, and I think the experience has been the experience of his trial and his incarceration has been devastating to the family. I don't think that means it shouldn't have happened, but the question of his future medical treatment and how and where that is delivered. It's not that I don't care about it. It's not something that I have any power to do anything about.
All right. Ending on kind of a silly note. There's been a controversy over at Wellesley College about this statue.
No, you're not going to ask me about the sleepwalker, are you?
We're about to do a whole segment with it with Jared Bone, and we want to.
Well, let's go to the segment then.
What do you think about the sleepwalker?
Well,
if your daughters went there, would you understand why they were upset?
You know, all I saw was the photograph, and it looked pretty creepy. In the
that's the word that's been used.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to say.
That's all I got.
All right. Governor Deval Patrick, thank you.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Emily.